Hi there, my wonderful English 111ers, and welcome to another video of week four. You'll see that posted down below is a little bit of an older video. You can tell from my lovely hair, where I'm going over Space Cat and the general ideas of rhetorical analysis and the rhetorical situation. So this video, since you have kind of an in-depth with that one, I'm going to focus more on this week and your resources. So this is a bit of a light lift of a week, and that's because last week you had to work really hard on your very first essay. And so I'm really looking forward to reading those and seeing more of your voice and your style and your sense of self and your word choice. And so you'll have feedback from me by the end of the week on that. And so I'm really excited about that. So for housekeeping for this week, a couple of things that I wanted you to know is I have most of your grades updated. I will be updating grades that were due Sunday, today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And give me an extra couple days for the essay one, just because there's so many of you. But I'm going to give some pretty good feedback on that. But what I wanted to make sure you were clear on is I've gotten some questions about this, so I'll just make sure I clarify. If you are on Harmonize and you post something late, word count's off, or you don't comment on enough people's posts, Harmonize will automatically kick it to incomplete. I always review them and adjust them and give you feedback. So if you completed it, but something was off, I will go give you feedback and change it. But just make sure that you're aware that those automatic settings are there. And so it will immediately flag your response if it doesn't do that. So I've had a few questions about that. So I just want to make sure it's clear. So this week, we're kind of delving into rhetoric and the art of persuasion and how persuasion is everywhere. So even though we start off with literacy narratives and the idea of telling stories, the other ways in which writing comes across as a way for us to understand the world is how writing is used to persuade, to manipulate, to coax, to bring about change. And that's one of the things that I love about rhetoric and Space Cat in general. So here's what we're looking at. We're looking at writing as a social and rhetorical activity and how writers persuade. So here are your readings for the week. You need to read Rhetorical Situations, that's in the Norton, on pages 57 to 74. Also, there is a section in the genre section. Oh, I think that my page number might be off there. But then there is a context piece from Thank You for Arguing. And what you need to do is pull in a multimodal text um, that you would like to analyze for your rhetoric in real life. So let me just double check on these page numbers. And I feel like I may have updated a couple of page numbers. So I suppose that's, and I can always update this. So I'm going to make sure that this is on the right page. Here is week. Yeah, okay. Yep. Okay, so I'll be copying and pasting that and fixing it so this video doesn't tell you the wrong thing. Okay, so here are the readings. So analyzing text is on page 128 to 141. And then there is an analysis of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite on page 115. And then you'll also bring in your multimodal text. Make sure that's updated for you. Okay. So as we move along through housekeeping, we are going to identify the rhetorical situation in our pieces this week. And then there's the rhetoric readings that are listed here. Some forward thinking on the SA2, Space Cat one pager, and Pricey if you'd like to preview that. Here are the slides for the week. So if on Space Cat. And then I'm going to be looking at and showing you a little bit of additional research on multimodal rhetoric. And then here's your passage for thank you for arguing. The pieces that you need to be concerned with completing for the week, rhetoric in real life. So once you pop that open, you will see this. So rhetoric in real life. And so this rhetoric in real life is finding a piece of rhetoric and writing about it and how it uses fallacies and how it also uses powerful choices, either through text or multimedia, to create a persuasive stance. And there are examples and directions there. Okay, so that is your first thing. So that's called Rhetoric in the Wild. And then the other thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to do Barbie Space Cat annotations with the piece that I'm about to show you. So, so the Space Cat annotations are going to be on this document that you're going to use. Okay. All right. So here is what we are going to be looking at. Okay. So in the video on Space Cat, you probably got a pretty decent foundation or like a general idea of rhetoric, right? So Space Cat stands for the rhetorical situation of who's the speaker, what's the reason that they're talking, the purpose, who are they talking to, the audience, the context surrounding the piece, why it was written, exigence, which is like the why now. And then you've got their choices, right? So how they make the argument work, and then your tone of the piece. And it's just a way to like look at a full rhetorical situation and kind of understand it at a glance. So if we add in something called multimodal literacies, what that means is it's Space Cat, but it's Space Cat plus things that are visual, gestural, or things that are not necessarily just written. So when we think of it, we think of things that are like modes of meaning, right? So when I say multimodality or anything like that, it's like, okay, so it's how are you using design elements to engage the senses in a way? If you are having an experience with a statue in Central Park, it's going to be different from a Monet in Metropolitan Museum of Art. So we've got lots of different ways that we learn through persuasion, and one mode is linguistic. So it's just written language, right? So pretty much what most of Space Cat focuses on. Most speeches are written this way. It's just the written word and the art of how it's written. But we pay attention in multimodal rhetorical analysis to not just what is written, but what is not. So there's affordances, which is like the thing that is, and like how it can create something different, but the constraints, like what is inhibited or limited by the thing. So like, for example, the affordances of the written language is that I can be more descriptive. The constraints are you cannot visualize. You have to only like think and visualize with your linguistic power. So multimodal literacies, you got linguistic, oral, visual, gestural, spatial. So any combination of that is considered multimodal. And so when you're talking about rhetoric, rhetoric can appeal to you in different ways. So audience analysis is one way. Venue publication analysis crosses genres, media and modes, peer review. It's all about like how we see and interact with things differently. So when you teach like visual rhetoric or like learning about it, there's ways to think about like how it's sequence, the alignment, like the audience, the proximity, the organization, the emphasis, the colors, all of that can come into how choices are made for rhetoric. So you want to think about like when you're thinking about a piece, in the wild is like. What can it do because of the genre or mode, and then what can it not do? So, a way to think about that might be like if you are if you're doing an art piece is only visual, so you do not hear anything. So this is the piece that you're going to be analyzing, and so it is written on the page for your annotation, but this is adding the layer of the film, which makes it the extra level of modality. Mm, well, looks like my video doesn't want to load right
It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old. Never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. And if all of that is also true for a doll, just representing a woman, then I don't even know.
So I know that that's definitely something that most of you have probably seen before. But what I wanted to call your attention to in that piece specifically is some elements of Space Cat. Okay, so we got the speaker. And so we know who the speaker is. It's the character played by America Ferrera. And so several of you are going to walk through like the purpose, the audience, the context, all of that. But a couple of highlights that I just wanted to call your attention to is that what makes this different when we look at it on a page versus when we're like hearing the words and when we're seeing her give the actual performance, she uses gesture, she changes the pitch of her voice, she is using repetition, she uses like these contradictory statements like have to be this, but not this, but not this. And by using those strategies and those persuasive choices, like it makes the argument more compelling. And the other thing is you have to consider like when she's saying these words, it's very different from when you're just reading them. So adding those gestures and those sounds and the orality makes the whole thing work in a different way than if you had just read it. So those are things to also keep in mind on top of the space cat analysis. For funsies, if you want to play with the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show and do your hand at multimodal rhetorical analysis with it, here are some questions for you. It is quite fun to do a rhetorical multimodal analysis of Bad Bunny. So that's just one way that you can approach. But like when you're thinking about rhetoric in the wild, it doesn't always have to be linguistic. It could be a Super Bowl halftime show. It could be something that is used to try to sell you a prescription medication. The point is, you always have to know how people are trying to persuade you and what means they're using to do it, and then how you can do that in order to persuade on your end. So, without further ado, I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I look forward to reading more about you on your personal narrative essays. Thank you so much, and see you later.